Good morning. Welcome to the Actery Magic Channel. I'm Steve, the Actery. I'm sipping a cup of coffee. So today, guys, we are talking about a new commander that's coming out fresh off the presses. If you're not familiar, this guy is brand new, hasn't even been printed yet. This guy is super excited. This guy is Lier, Disciple of the Drowned. I couldn't help but think, dude, that's totally a Game of Thrones reference. Anyway, so Lier, Disciple of the Drowned. If you wait to the end, we've got some cool combos to go with him, so please stay tuned for that. But anyway, let's get into it. Lier, Disciple of the Drowned is a 5-drop legendary 3/4 human wizard. It says spells can't be countered. Your spells, your opponent's spells, nobody's spells can be countered. It's really, really cool. But it says each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard has flashback. That flashback cost is equal to that card's mana cost. Something to note. Okay, something to note about this. So, flashback is considered an alternate cost. So, things that reduce casting costs and things that pay for costs of certain types of spells apply to things with flashback. Note that before we get into it, because one of the things that I think most people are going to need in their Lier, Disciple of the Drowned deck is mana. Okay, so Lier, Disciple of the Drowned, let's talk about him. First up, let's talk about the mana. So I found that there are several common and uncommon creatures that tap for mana in blue that really have very minor restrictions. For instance, Carfell Harbinger can only be cast on Foretell and instant sorcery cards. That's cool, but it adds a blue. Similarly, with Unblinking Observer, can tap for a blue, but only spends on instant and sorcery spells. Very cool cards. Now, if we get into Ornithopter of Paradise, taps for any color. Silver Myrrh adds a blue. These are both really, really good cards, and they actually help us later down the line whenever we get into our combos. So let's get into it. So, our next one, these are our strictly upgraded mana creatures. The reason I say that is they both tap for a colorless, but they also mill us a card, which is almost, not quite, but almost like drawing a card in this deck, because it says tap, mill card, add a generic. Well, whatever we milled, if it's an instant or sorcery, we can just cast it. So milling ourselves is not a big deal in this deck. In fact, we kind of want to encourage that, and that's why Ranged Assistant and Milliken both made it in my list. They're very unique cards too. Like, they're the only cards that do this sort of thing. Milliken can go in a lot more decks because it can also work with Reanimator strategies. I really like Milliken. It's a really underrated uncommon out of Modern Horizons 2. Anyway, next up we have our best mana, which is Urza Lord High Artificer. This dude is just the best mana in blue. The only problem I have with him is he's more of a artifact-centric style deck, whereas we're playing instants and sorcery. So I don't think he exactly fits in here. But if you want to go heavy on the mana building base, this is what I recommend. Because now your artifacts that are doing other things, and we'll talk about them here in a second, can now tap for blue. Now, this one, Semblance Anvil and Cloud Key, both of these will reduce the casting cost of a card. And I forget the ruling, but it's basically the ruling number, but it's basically you add up the whole cost of your alternate cost of the card. Like, so for instance, kicker or buyback or X. And then you say, this is how much I want the card to cost total. And then Semblance Anvil or Cloud Key will come in and check that cost and say, okay, we'll reduce it by 1 or we'll reduce it by 2. Does that make sense? Anyway, I have to look up the ruling and I'll put it in the description below. But anyway, Semblance Anvil is a 3-drop implant. It says whenever it enters the battlefield, you may exile a non-land card from your hand. Spells you cast that share a card type with the exiled card cost 2 less to cast. I'm going to say you're going to probably choose instants because you're going to lean more heavily that direction typically with Lier, but it's up to you. Cloud Key, similarly, you get to choose instants or sorceries. I'm probably going to lean on the instant side and build instants into my deck as the whole. Anyway, next up on our list, the best mana reduction is Catalyst Stone. And I say that kind of because Cloudstone Curial and Semblance Anvil will still cast cards in our hand for cheaper, whereas Catalyst Stone only flashback cost 2 less to cast. But still, this is a very, very powerful card in our deck. and there's no reason not to play it. I think it's like $1.50. It's very, very good. Next up, we have our Tutors Merchant Scroll. It searches for a blue instant, puts it into our hand. Solve the equations, searches for an instant or sorcery, puts it into our hand. Muddle the Mixture. This one is low-key one of the better tutors in our deck, and I'll show you why here in a bit. But it says counter target instant or sorcery spell. Don't care. It says transmute. Double blue and a generic. It's discard this card, search your library for a card with the same converted mana cost as this card, reveal it, put it in your hand. That means any 2-drop in our deck can go and be put into our hand. Talk about that here in a minute. Mystical Tutor searches for any instant and puts it on top of our library, which is an interesting distinction. But it's for 1 blue, and it's one of the best. But the best is Intuition, in my opinion. It's a 1 blue, 2 generic. Search your library for any 3 cards, reveal them to target opponent. He or she chooses one. Put that card in your hand, and put the rest in your graveyard. Put these 3 cards into either my hand or my hand. It's what it basically reads. It's a really, really cool card. Anyway, next up we have Step Through. This is on the surface very, very not good. It's 2 blue, 3 generic sorcery. Return target creature to its owner's 2 target creatures to its owner's hand. Okay. Wizard Cycling. 2 generic. Discard this card, search your library for a wizard card. Reveal it and put it in your hand, then shuffle. What? There's so many wizards we could be running in this mono blue deck. It's so cool. I love this. And you even see the foot of the guy right there stepping through the portal. I really like this. It's a cool card. Next up, number 6 on our list. Wave Break Hippocamp. I love this card. Especially if we're leaning hard into instants, you'll really like this card. 1 blue, 2 generic. Whenever you cast your first spell during each opponent's turn, draw a card. Yes! Wave Break Hippocamp makes things like Into the Royal, Eye Blink, and like Unsummon and Vapor Snag, all of those cards that tempo, it makes tempo cards so much more powerful because they're cantripping at the same time. Your tempo cantripping, you're gonna really frustrate your opponent, especially with their board state getting all set up. This is an all-star because now you're going to recoup that loss of having played a spell on your opponent's turn to bounce something, and now you're going to draw a new card. It's so good, so powerful. Another one, and this is Lunar Mystic. This guy, look at the art on this thing. This thing looks exactly like a brand new card that's coming out in Midnight Hunt. Tell me what it is. What do you think it is? But this guy has been here before, and we're getting to see him again, and that's really, really cool. He's a 4-drop, 2 generic, 2 blue, 2/2 human wizard. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, instant spell, only instant. So that's again why I encourage instants mostly. If you may pay a generic, if you do draw a card, we can use Deranged Assistant to pay for this casting cost, which is nice. This triggered cost. Next up, way better. Secrets of the Dead. 1 blue, 2 generic. Enchantment. Whenever you cast a spell from your graveyard, draw a card. Bananas in Lier. No more to say about it. Every time we flash them back, bam! Awesome. Also good in cast if you have that deck too. Next up, number 3, we have Dika, Fractal Theorist. I like this card because it's an army unto herself. It's a 5-drop, 1 blue, 4 generic, and there's a lot of creatures that produce token creatures whenever you cast an instant sorcery. Go look them up. But this one says, whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, create a 0/0 green blue fractal creature token. Put X1 counters on it, where X is that spell's mana value. Wow. And then it says 1 blue, 3 generic, target creature token can't be blocked this turn. So if you play like a 7-drop, you're going to get a 7/7 fractal. Sweet. Seems good to me. And then you can make it unblockable. So you can really wreck people's faces in with this. Number 2 on our list, Jace, Wielder of Mysteries. I know you people are so degenerate out there in the world, you doing these degenerate things. There's another card. I'm sure you've heard of it. What's that card? Thassa's Oracle. This is basically another copy of this, but I think this has more usefulness in the whole than Thassa's Oracle. It's 3 blue, 1 generic, 4 loyalty, Planeswalker Jace. If you draw a card while your library has no cards in it, you win the game instead. Somebody's going to play this. Somebody's going to beat me with this card, and I'm going to be super salty. All right, +1. Target player puts the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard, draw a card. Probably target ourselves and just fill up our graveyard. -8, draw 7 cards, and if your library has no cards in it, you win the game. Sweet, another win condition. Another card that says you win the game on it. Sweet. And number 1 on our list is Ice Crown Scepter. There is seriously I believe, not a better card to go in this deck because we're gonna have so many instants and there's gonna be so many good cards that we want to play every turn. Icecrown Scepter is just so good in this, in my opinion. Now let's talk about the combos because it enables several combos. Not the least of which is Icecrown Scepter and Dramatic Reversal. Icecrown Scepter is a 2 generic imprint. Whenever it enters the battlefield, you may exile an instant card with converted mana cost 2 or less from your hand. 2 generic tap, you may copy the exiled card. If you do, you may cast that copy without paying its mana cost. Fantastic. Dramatic Reversal says untap all non-land permanents you control. It's a 1 blue, 1 generic instant. So you're going to tap Icecrown Scepter, play Dramatic Reversal. Dramatic Reversal is going to untap your non-land permanents, including Icecrown Scepter. So where that becomes interesting is now Sol Ring and Silvermere are going to generate, if they're on the board at the same time as these two, as an Icecrown Scepter with Dramatic Reversal, now we get infinite blue mana. Or colors, whatever. Because we're going to pay 2 to basically activate Icecrown Scepter, and then we're going to tap 1 to float a blue, and then we're going to untap Icecrown Scepter with Dramatic Reversal. And then we're going to untap Sol Ring and Silvermere. And just go infinite. So good. Anyway, next up on our list, Blue Sun's Zenith. Triple blue and X. Target player draws X cards. Shuffle Blue Sun's Zenith into its owner's library. So good. While on the stack, Thassa's Oracle is on the stack. It's double blue, 1/3 Merfolk Wizard. Whenever it enters battlefield, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is your devotion to blue. Pull up to 1 of them on top of your library and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. If X is greater than or equal to the number of cards in your library, you win the game. So with Thassa's Oracle ability on the stack, respond with all that infinite mana, draw everything but 1 card in your deck. Blue Sun Zenith resolves. It's shuffled on top. Thassa's Oracle comes into play. I win. So good. Next up on our list, we can also, yeah, obviously, infinite mana. I don't know why I put that slide in there. Also, with this kind of situation set up, we have, say we've got only 2 generic from like Sol Ring or Deranged Assistant and something else. If we're only producing 2 mana with our non-land permanents, we can still go infinite with Codex Shredder, because Codex Shredder, we can untap Icecrown Scepter infinitely then, and Codex Shredder infinitely. So that means that Codex Shredder will tap target player mills a card for 1 generic. I mean, you can return target card from your graveyard to your hand, but really what we're doing is looking at really over and over and over. Oh, you have no library. You have no library. You have no library. It's just really, really powerful. And that's, you know, infinite mill, right? And so the next card that we have that goes well with Icecrown Scepter is Mystical Tutor. A Mystical Tutor also does something degenerate with us. It's 1 blue. Search your library for an instant or sorcery card and reveal that card, put it to all players. So you're going to put Icecrown Scepter in play. You're going to reveal Mystical Tutor and imprint it onto Icecrown Scepter. You're going to tap Icecrown Scepter, search your library for a instant. Put it on top. At the end of somebody else's turn. You untap, you draw Nexus of Fate, you cast Nexus of Fate, take another turn. It gets shuffled into your library. You pay 2 from Icecrown Scepter, and you go search for it again. Put it on top. You take your next turn, you draw Nexus of Fate, you cast Nexus of Fate, you tap, infinite turns, and then you go name that movie. I'm not going to tell you what it is. But you're going to be locked into time, repeating the same thing over and over again. Anyway, guys, I know this is a little bit longer video today, but I thought this guy was so cool. I would love it if you'd like, share, comment, and subscribe. Please give a comment out there because I need to know what you guys do and don't like so that I can bring you content that fits the community's needs. All right, guys, love you much. Deuces. Ah, where's the button?